Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving into a study that, well, it really pushes the boundaries of what you might think is possible. We're going to break down an experiment that claims it can change your actual blood from 8 kilometers away using just a photograph and a pretty unusual device.
So let's just start with the big question, the one a 2022 research paper set out to explore. Seriously, can your blood be physically changed from that far away with just a photo? It's a massive claim, and as you're about to see, the experiment designed to test it is, well, it's just as unconventional. Okay, so to even begin to understand how they tried this, we first have to look at the object at the very heart of the experiment, something called the Leela Quantum Infinity Bloc.
And here it is. This is the device itself. Now, it's probably not what you were picturing when you heard quantum technology, right? It's essentially 2 golden plates held together in a wooden frame.
The client who actually commissioned the study has a very specific way of describing it. They don't call it a machine. Instead, they say it's a tool that creates a concentrated quantum energy space. The idea is that this special energy field is generated right there between those plates.
And the list of what the client claims it can do is pretty long. We're talking about everything from harmonizing EMF, the electromagnetic fields from Wi-Fi and cell phones, all the way to charging objects with pure quantum energy. But the one that's really key for this experiment is the claim that it can perform what they call non-commercial quantum entanglement, which is their term for how it can supposedly influence things from a distance.
So, how in the world did the researchers plan to measure these effects? Well, their whole method really boiled down to 2 things: a special way of looking at blood and a, let's say, controversial theory about how to influence it from super far away.
First, for the observation part, they use something called dark field microscopy. Now, what's so cool about this technique is that it lets you see a fresh drop of blood live under a microscope. So you're not looking at a static, dead sample. You're actually watching the blood cells move around and interact in real time.
And now for the how. The study uses the term quantum entanglement, but, and this is really important, this is not how a physicist would define it. In this study, entanglement refers to a process where you place a person's photo inside the block, and supposedly that creates a remote connection. They theorize this works through something they call a morphogenetic field, which is another concept from outside of mainstream science.
Okay, so with those tools in mind, the microscope and this idea of entanglement, how did the researchers actually structure the experiment? Let's walk through the procedure they used.
Now, this is maybe the most important part of the whole setup. It was a blind test. The participants, the people whose blood was being tested, they had no idea when the block was supposedly influencing them. They didn't even know if it was being used on them at all. The process itself was surprisingly simple. First, they take a before blood sample to get a baseline. Then, completely unknown to the person, their photo is placed inside that infinity block, which is sitting about 8 kilometers away. The person just waits for 15 minutes, having no clue what's happening. And then, finally, an after blood sample is taken to see if anything changed.
Okay, and this brings us to the real core of this whole thing. What did the researchers say they actually found when they looked at those before and after blood samples?
The research paper gives us a really detailed case study for one participant. He's a male born in 1954, and they just identify him as P6.
So his initial before blood sample showed some pretty concerning signs. The report mentioned money roll formation. That's where red blood cells stack up like coins, which is really bad for oxygen flow. It also noted clumping, poor circulation, and signs of oxidative stress, which is basically damage happening at the cellular level.
And right here is the direct comparison. The after sample was taken just 15 minutes after his photo was placed in that block 8 kilometers away. And the reported changes, well, it's pretty dramatic. The report says the money roll formations were gone, the blood flow had improved, and the clumping was, and I'm quoting here, resolved almost completely.
So, to put it simply, the study is reporting a remarkably fast and positive transformation in this person's blood quality, all from a 15-minute exposure triggered from miles away by nothing more than a photograph. So, at the end of the day, the paper lays out its methods and its pretty startling results. And it really forces you to ask some big questions, doesn't it? Are we looking at some powerful, misunderstood phenomenon, a way we're all connected that we just don't get yet? Or is this maybe a case of flawed methodology, a really powerful placebo effect, even inside a blind test? The study doesn't give us the final answer, but it definitely challenges you to think about where the boundaries of science and belief really lie.